All right, thanks for joining us. Today we're going to talk about 4 next-gen strategies for consulting strategies for Salesforce consultants. And really, this is timely coming out of Dreamforce, engaging with all of our customers. Today, you've got myself, Mike Bogan, Steve is joining us as well. The two of us, we spent a lot of time together at Traction on Demand, helping grow a consulting partner from about 20 people up to about 1,500. And since then, we've been focused on Hubbl Technologies and bringing these capabilities out to the ecosystem. So that's what we'll be talking about today. In terms of the strategies we want to talk about, one of them is this idea of doing an org audit by email for a prospect. We're going to look at how we can automate scope, how we can increase renewal rates in managed services, and then also looking at business process analysis acceleration using some automated process analytics. So the challenge we all face is that when we're engaging with prospects, you're expected to be the expert from day one, but you don't have any visibility. And one of the things that makes this even more challenging is that the average org has about 24,000 pieces of metadata in it. So even if you did have access and you clicked through everything, it would take you about 4 days to click through absolutely everything in the org. And nobody has the time to do it, and it's not possible. So this is what's driving a lot of the challenge in this consulting journey that we all experience. So you're engaging with leads, trying to build a statement of work. Depending on who you're working with, you end up in these rescoping environments. And then once if you do get to a closed won project, you can hand that off. And depending on the way your organization works, oftentimes the delivery teams would get inside of that org, and then understand that there's more work to be done, which leads to change orders, red accounts, even executive engagements. Delivery swarms, that concept of pulling people in off of one project to save another project. We all want to be on this green path, moving up to trusted partnership and managed services. And that's what we'll be talking about today. So Steve and I, like I said, we've been working across selling Salesforce services for over a decade now. And there's all kinds of ways that Hubbl Technologies is helping across the journey. So building trust in the front end of the cycle, enhancing delivery through this automated process discovery, and even scaling out managed services. So let's focus on those 4 use cases I want to go through today. This one stems, I was the first solution engineer at Traction, and Steve and I we'd always get in those cycles, right, where you're engaging with a prospect and trying to understand what's happening in the org. You're held account for an estimate that's coming from a 1-hour interaction basically with a customer with no visibility on the org. So what we've done is we've created a completely new paradigm. You can send an email to a prospect, and from that email, you can get an audit of their Salesforce org. It's the most secure audit in the Salesforce ecosystem. We don't look at any of the data in the org. You don't have access to their org. You can't see their PII data that's in that org. And all you're doing is sending off that email. And so the way this works is through something called scan requests. You can send a scan request off to a customer once you've created a Hubbl Diagnostics account, and you can just grab that directly from the website. When the customer receives that email, you typically are sending them, I mean, Steve, this is kind of a best practice, right? Sending some information beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's vital to really involve this in your sales cycles, and like your salespeople need to be enabled on this conversation. And the talk track that I would typically recommend is, something along the lines of like, we invest in pieces of technology throughout your sales cycle and your delivery cycle to get us to on time, on budget engagements as fast as humanly possible. So that way your prospects and your customers will have a good understanding of what the purpose of this scan request is. I think in contrast with that, if you were to just send a random scan request email to a customer or a prospect, totally fair for them to think it's a fishing expedition. So I think it's really important to make sure, and we're very careful of making sure that we enable all of our customers to follow that best practice.
Yeah, and so this is an example of a one-pager we share that you can send off to the customer before you send the scan request. And then when that happens, you're hitting sort of 90% return rates on this. And the way it works is you send across that email, then the customer, they get an email that shows them a little video about how this works. They click on Start Scan, and what they're doing is they land on a landing page, and you provide us with a logo, so you get a co-branded landing page for your consultancy. You can put in your own custom text, and then they authenticate against their Salesforce org. And what we're doing is we're connecting against their org via OAuth 2, and our temporary scanner runs up, analyzes the metadata, and generates an output. And that output, you'll get an email that says the output is ready, and then you log into your Hubbl Diagnostics account, which is just sitting on top of Experience Cloud, and you get access to these results. And what's really cool about this is that the customer doesn't get the results. So you actually control the playback, you control the conversation. That email comes in, says they've completed the analysis, which means that you can then schedule the follow-up, get some time in there to do some analysis. And for the first ones, when we interact with you, we can definitely help you out interpreting some of these results too. So this is just
the only other thing.
Go ahead, Steve.
And sorry to interrupt you, Mike. Yeah, the only other thing that I would add is that oftentimes the prospects that you're talking to are not the end users or the admins of the system. So bear in mind that that email that goes to your prospect, it doesn't have to be the perfect person. So they can forward that email onto their admin so that they can authenticate into the system as well.
Yeah, that's a really important one. And you can see that, I mean, the real goal here was to reduce the friction in those sales cycles and get everyone to success more quickly, because now you're starting on a sort of trusted basis. We can dig deeper into the results that are in here. We've got all kinds of demos around the actual results that are here, but this is just in terms of new strategies, this is a completely new paradigm in the ecosystem. Yeah. You can get an audit of a Salesforce org by just sending an email to a customer or a prospect.
And important to think about the opposite end of that spectrum. In absence of doing things this way, you are forced to go into an hour of scoping or two, maybe if you're lucky, get some reverse demos from people that may or may not know what's going on in the rest of the system. So I think it's the other side of it is that even if you do get access and they give you admin credentials, then you have access to every single piece of data that's in their system. You should be going through MSAs and DPAs and all of those other kind of things as you're going through your scoping engagement. So again, if you think about ways to accelerate your sales cycles, this is absolutely one of them, so that you don't get bogged down in the legal back and forth.
And in terms of results, you can see you get some summary details. This is the recommendations tab, which gives a game plan to optimize their org. And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. But we do installed packages analysis, understanding the packages that are out of date. We run an entire field utilization across every field, every object in the org. And remember, all you did was send an email. And with that 1 or 2 minutes of effort, you have run field utilization across their entire org. All kinds of other capabilities in here. But one of the things that's really unique about what we're doing is we actually, when you get that results, you're actually looking at the results from a benchmark perspective. So we compare the results of that org against every other org that's ever been analyzed. So you get a quantitative and an objective view of where that org actually stands for the first time. And again, you're getting this just from an email. So here's an example of an org you've never seen this org before, but it's in pretty poor shape. It hasn't been managed very well. It's got tons of technical debt, and it's really complex. It means that they've invested a lot in Salesforce. This black line is just sort of the average that we see across the ecosystem. And if you look at different orgs, you might have an org that's really basic. It's in really good shape. It's sort of like greenfield org. You can get in there and build quickly. But a customer like this, you might be talking to someone in their call centers like, hey, let's just do a simple case automation project, and you get in there and just everything goes sideways, right? And this helps you all start from a level of trust and conversation that you can't get any other way. All right, so that's organized by emails. Let's talk about scope generation. So think about that scenario where you're engaging with a customer, a prospect. They've got a project they want to work on, and they want to execute. Let's just follow that call center scenario. They want to execute some some new automation in the case object, for example, with a Hubbl Diagnostics account and scan, what we do is we not only give you that background of the entire org, but we generate this personalized game plan for their entire org. We look across all of the metadata and we score all of that metadata through thresholds, and we identify issues that we've uncovered based on the Salesforce well-architected framework. And then what we do is we rank them by the severity of the issue and the level of effort to address those and fix them. And so this matrix is basically an opportunity for you to understand the scope of work that could be done from a tech debt remediation type standpoint and an org optimization perspective. And those can then be added into the scope of projects that you might be working on, whether it's that one specific project that they want to work on right now, or if it's something that's a follow-on scenario. So what you can do is you can dig into each of these sections here. And if you look at this high severity issues, things that land in high severity are typically issues like these SOQL injection, custom code that has SOQL injection issues. We're seeing data breaches left and right. We're all tired of it. We need our orgs to be secure. Customers are often building custom code in the org that is insecure. And so what we're doing is we're automating and finding and showing you where all these specific issues are, and then you can leverage those to build additional scope of work in your statement of works. And if you think about this, these fixes are typically 40 to 80 hour type custom code fixes in terms of generating the code, fixing that code, deploying. If you look at an example of an ROI slide, this is an example of a customer leveraging Hubbl Diagnostics. They ran in about 2 months, they ran 40 orgs. And if you just make a few assumptions in here, like their average bill rate, their win rate, you can actually see that even just using an assumed hourly fix of 4 hours, not even the 40 hours, you can generate incredible amounts of pipeline based on those high risk issues that are inside of an org, and get to an ROI really quickly.
And for what it's worth, that's all like being based off of like a $200 an hour bill rate. That is not likely your architect's hourly bill rate either. So I think we're seeing return on investment happening in a matter of days, oftentimes on the very first scan that a customer is driving to. I think also important to note that when we built this originally and we rolled it out at Traction, we ended up driving $19 million in pipeline within a single quarter, just mining within our own customers that we had kind of active projects in. So important to note, like Traction was a much bigger company at the time of acquisition. So, scale those numbers back to a certain extent, but pretty serious revenue and pipeline numbers that can come from that.
Yeah, that was exciting times right before the acquisition. Like, wait a minute, we had just uncovered this capability. But now what we're honestly doing is bringing the platform out to build success across the entire ecosystem, because we know that if we can increase all customer success on the Salesforce platform, it generates more customers for everyone to be working with. And that's really what we're trying to achieve here. All right, managed services renewal rates. So this is a really interesting one, right? So if you have managed services or buckets of hours or however you communicate that, essentially oftentimes a customer comes in and they have a list of things to do, right? And they're too busy to do them all. So they need some support. And so you're supporting them. And what ends up happening is your managed services team, or if you're just doing it yourself solo, you're managing usually around 8 to 10 different customers, and you're kind of like working between them all. And then you have a salesperson related to those. And what happens is in those renewals, when the renewal comes up, everyone's kind of working on their context switching so much, it's difficult to build the renewal because we don't really know what to do next. And that's where this personalized game plan really comes in to help accelerate those renewals, because now you've built a set of scope that is sitting there ready to be worked against. So when the renewal comes up, it's much easier for the sales team to build a tangible statement of work that justifies the renewal and helps that customer continue to grow with your organization. And what's really cool about Hubbl is that it's a monitoring platform. This isn't just like a one-time experience. What you're doing is you're tracking that customer over time. And so think this matrix here, we got those high severity issues. You have that, and you sent off that initial email, you got the first scan, you found these high severity issues, you maybe kicked off that project. And now if you translate that into time, each one of these dots is a new scan that you're working with the customer. And you can just schedule those scans to run automatically. And so you find those high severity issues, you spin up a project to work with the customer to fix those, you roll it out, and now you can show the customer with nice visuals that you've made the impact on the org is now secure, and you're tracking it over time. And then what happens inevitably is that some new recommendations come in. It could be they installed a new app, there was new code developed, who knows what's coming in there. And what you can do is use the issues lifecycle to just track in and see what has actually caused this increase in recommendations. This is a pretty benign set of issues here, but basically Salesforce launched a new release. So some of the API versions got older, and then somebody created a bunch of reports that have no descriptions. And so you can see how you can proactively monitor a customer over time in your managed services environment. And you can even do this in a multi-org way. So you can actually look across your entire portfolio of customers. If you have 10 customers, 100 customers, you can actually see the health of all of their orgs over time. So you can track your managed services to remove all of their high risk issues, for example.
And again, I think if you take a look at what the alternative is, as you're trying to sell managed services contracts, a lot of the time you're asking your customers, like, first of all, like, what's your budget? You know, you can afford 20 hours a month, any of those kind of things. But now you actually have rooted data to make recommendations on how many hours hypothetically they would need to have in order to accomplish a well-architected framework. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's up to your customer to say, I want to get there by the end of the year, and therefore how many hours and how much do we need to add into that managed services agreement. So I get passionate about this because I think managed services is as close as you get to ARR within a professional services world. So, you know, ultimately that's probably your stickiest type of customer.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about optimization, getting those org audits. Hubbl Technologies brings you a completely new capability to automate bottleneck discovery and do adoption tracking. And so the way to think about this is all businesses are a collection of processes that are designed by humans and empowered by technology. We need to build those processes inside of Salesforce, and we need to track, we need to make sure people are adopting, we need to understand where we can improve those processes. And so the way we do this is leveraging a product called Process Analytics. We can actually view a process in its entirety. So if we just focus on the left here, you can actually see what we're looking at here. Let's follow along that case scenario. This is the case object, and each box here is the status on the case itself. And so what we're able to do with Process Analytics is actually visualize what has happened with every single case from open to close, and then show you where the bottlenecks are. These red arrows are showing you the slow times for those particular stages that are transitioning between those statuses. And so what's incredible here is as consultants, we're always doing those business process workshops where we're in Lucidchart or Visio or your favorite charting platform and building out their process and asking them questions about what's next and what they think is happening. Rarely do they actually uncover everything. It just almost, and what ends up happening is you design a solution based on what they think is happening, and then you roll it out, and then you realize later, oh, we missed this stuff. So what Process Analytics does is an app exchange app that you install in the org, and in minutes, you can visualize absolutely everything that has happened, and then you can slice through it and compare. And so what I'm showing you here is we did our business process discovery. We were then, because we ran Process Analytics, we were able to identify these hotspots, these bottlenecks. We rolled out a new process. And so in this gap here, we've rolled out a new process. And now if you look at sort of before we rolled out the new implementation, or maybe we even took advantage of Agentforce and we have a new agent who's handling this process, right? Now If we look afterwards and we look at the adoption and the change, now we can see that this process that was taking 2 weeks before is now only taking 4 days. And we can really clearly and easily visualize this and share it with the executives in a way that they can consume and understand the actual impact and change that we've made on the organization. This visualization here is actually combining the two together and showing you that gap between that 2 weeks and 4 days. So you can do it all in one piece. And so this is just one example of a use case for process analytics. This is an incredible, incredible capability that allows you to slice all the way down into sort of this. If we go into the call center scenario, you could, for example, you could look at all the new agents that have only been there for the last 6 months, comparing them against agents who have been there for years, right? And look at how they're working through processes. There's all kinds of training and adoption scenarios that you can leverage there. And this, again, is an AppExchange app you can install directly from the AppExchange, and it allows you to leverage the case and opportunity objects just using it for free. And you can also make these visualizations for any custom object in the org. You can even do stacked objects, going from lead to contact to opportunity, that type of thing. And you can also even visualize external data sources. So if you have sort of tracking logs on external data, you can actually create these visualizations using that as well. All right, let's do one. We did 4. We said 4. Let's do a bonus. Why not? We got a couple minutes. This one is really about thinking about that territory plan. You want to talk to this one, Steve?
Yeah. So I think that relatively obvious that Hubbl is going to provide a ton of benefit across pre-sales, delivery, and managed services. But I think the front side of this, putting my old sales guy, services sales guy hat on, the thing that gets me really excited is thinking about how you can bring this into the ecosystem at Salesforce as you're trying to develop more of your opportunities. So the way that the image that you see on the screen here is quite similar to how Traction on Demand went to market. And I think that there's a ton that we can give over to the ecosystem here as well. So essentially what we would do is we would organize our territories based on RVP and AVP and all of the AEs underneath them. By the way, that will allow you to verticalize a little bit differently. And we typically recommend about 3 to 4 RVPs per sales rep, depending on, your capacities there. But what we would end up doing is get an understanding of what's happening within their territories. Let's say in a retail example, you've got a whole bunch of big box retailers, or you have another one that has a whole bunch of different restaurants, and you're trying to understand what are the major themes that are coming out of them. So really commonly, a common use case that we were hearing is that I'm not going to buy any more licensing until I have a good understanding of that I'm getting the maximum value out of all of the licenses that I already had. So you can create and organize a play, so to speak, where Hubbl becomes a portion of what you're offering to their customers. So realistically, what does that involve for you? It involves a Hubbl scan. But the way that you frame this again to your AE partners is, hey, I am here to help you unpack and uncover more ACV opportunities and get your customer the most value out of the licenses that they have. The way that we're going to do this is you introduce me to your customer, we run a scan, and then prior to actually going into the discovery, now we have access to all of the information that you're getting from that Hubbl scan. As you look across on the right-hand side as we go through pre-sales, I've highlighted all of the areas that I think a Hubbl scan dramatically impacts. So obviously you're scoping calls, but when you're looking at your estimation, now you have a good understanding of how many developers, how much architect time. The baseline of that is actually kind of shown within your Hubbl scan. And then of course, as you're going into your SOW and your resourcing and procurement cycles, now you have an understanding of why we need those resources for X amount of time at X amount of rate. So again, thinking about procurement, this is a huge benefit to think about the data points that you have to justify the cost and the price parameters that you put on your SOW. And then as you can see, as we transition down into implementations, you have the kind of gruesome twosome here, where you have the ability to run a scan at the beginning of your engagement and throughout each of your individual sprints so that you're managing quality throughout there. And then of course, as you take a look at where you can leverage process analytics, of course, at the front side, as you're trying to figure out what the flows are in the process that you're going to be building, But also, I get really passionate and excited about thinking about the after effects of your implementation. Again, if we use that sales or service use case, once you have an understanding of what it was before, what it was after, that's a justification for the overarching cost of the SOW. But moreover, you also have the ability to take a look and see how people are adopting the system. Again, I get wildly passionate about this, and these are tools that we wish that we would have had for a longer period of time at Traction. And genuinely, if we were to build an SI right now, this is the root of how we would manage all engagements. And again, data driven, your customers are in the driver's seat and they're watching with you. So hopefully this is a helpful illustration of how you can use both Hubbl tools kind of across the delivery lifecycle, or the opportunity through into delivery and hopefully into managed services shortly after that.
And the way to think about this, if you look at it from an ROI perspective, the way we partner with you is to basically do a site-wide implementation. All of your consultants, managed services, pre-sales, sales, everyone gets access to the product. And if you back to that very original conversation, if you were to go into an org and click through it, it took you 4 days to just click in through setup. If you did that in managed services and we're doing monthly monitoring, that's 10 weeks without any analysis, any visualization, any of the machine learning that's happening underneath. Manually collate. We used to manually collate these types of results, and like tiny subsets of it. It would take you weeks or months per scan. And now your Hubble's reducing this to efforts to minutes. And so your overall productivity gains are absolutely massive, which leads to improved margins on things like your org health audits that are happening out there. And the pricing that we use in our partnership model is the way to think about this is basically you can access Hubbl Diagnostics results across your account for the entire year for less than you charge an architect to dig into an org for a couple of hours. So it's at a price point that makes it essentially leads to customer success across the entire ecosystem and helps us motivate to grow your business.
And we do this really strategically so that you don't have if you're thinking I got 20 scans in the bucket and should I use a scan on this X customer, or should I hold it for the one that I don't even know that I have in the opportunity pipeline yet, right? So I think the important thing here is that we're encouraging our customers to think about leveraging Hubbl and scans throughout that entire customer journey that we just went through there.
So hopefully that has given you a sense of some new ideas of how you can leverage Hubbl Technologies in your consulting journey. Things like that new paradigm with the email audits. That's even one where you can even set up web to lead forms on your website that allow customers to come in for org assessments, and then you can send off those scan requests to help engage with them. So it gives you completely new ways to do your go-to-market. Just one last thing, I'll quickly, because we haven't actually gone into the products at all. I just want to show you a little bit of sort of what's happening. Everything here is completely dynamic. This is Hubbl Diagnostics. You essentially create an account on the platform. This is the results for a single org. If you feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to dig into a deeper dive demo on all the technologies and all the capabilities there. Process analytics. Again, this is an app exchange app that you install in a customer's org, which allows you to create these visualizations that you can view across any object, custom or standard, inside that Salesforce org. And so with that, thank you for your time and attention, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. That's very, very informative. I appreciate the demo. Bye.
Thanks.